Lewis, that's not your real hair. I'm sorry. It's just staring at me.
No, I use my essence to shampoo. You can't believe how powerful it is.
Why is Lewis looking like this?
The truth is,
I know it bothers me. It just doesn't seem right.
It's a fun night, and here's the thing, though, Ben. For all we know, Lewis always wears a hat that really could be his hair.
No, the hat would be sitting a foot above his head.
There's a lot of moose.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're live.
I don't know what he normally looks like, so
not like that.
I just thought
not like that.
Not like that.
No.
Hey, Jeff, Senior.
Hannah, what are your favorite restaurants in Greenville?
Oh, my favorite restaurants where I go to. Well, now I'm gonna forget the name of it. There is a. It starts with an S.
Remza, do you like the new?
I'm totally
like the
blanking
shirt?
on it.
What's the shirt? Step back.
Sobeys.
The club
Sobeys
there,
in Greenville.
there's a very nice club in Greenville that we're members of.
Oh, really?
I'm blanking on the name.
Approve.
You get the subliminal message of it? I owe that to Rock Breath, because the other night when I was wearing my Captain America shirt, he thought I was like a target. Looked like a target. So I said, that's a good idea for a shirt.
Glenn.
There you
I'll
go.
ask Alex what's the name of the club.
Okay, we're starting in 1 minute, boys and girls. Boys and girl, or girls, I'm saying.
We don't know how Lewis identifies tonight. His hair changed, so he could be anything or anyone.
Club.
Transitioning.
There you go. I'm proud of
Brady,
you.
as
Brave.
much good news is we're not talking politics tonight. We're staying away. We are a politic-free zone tonight. We're trying to be. And on that note, everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. I'm Judah Friedman, your moderator. Thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at The World According to Ben Stein. Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein, and follow us on Parler at Ben Stein. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones, tell your enemies, just tell them. Joining us again is the other Ben, Ben Hef Boychuk, managing editor of AM Greatness. It's good to see you, Ben. And
good to be
of
back.
course, the esoteric himself, Lewis Esoteric Fine. And of course, podcaster extraordinaire, Parler's amazing director of outreach, probably the best in the world, Remzo, the Kid Martinez. And Lewis came up with that one. And first time joining us is Hannah Cox. She is a contributor at Newsmax, or as they call it, an insider. Welcome to The World According to Ben Stein, Hannah Cox.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for being here. And of course, how could we forget America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
It is my honor to be here.
And the topic tonight on Ben Stein After Dark is, where was Ben when that happened? And I will start off with a long, long time ago, when I could still remember how that music made me smile. Where were you, Ben Stein, the day the music died, and how did that make you feel?
Well, I think I was in junior high school at Montgomery Hills Junior High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. What was the day? Was it 58 or 59? 59, I think. Anyway, I think I was in junior high school, and I felt terrible about it. I was a huge Buddy Holly fan. I thought he was as talented as they make him. I felt just awful about it. Just terrible, terrible, terrible. I don't remember being that big a fan of the Big Bopper. I was, Richie Valens was great, fantastic. And it just was terribly sad. But I cannot really say that I felt as if my life was over or that my life changed dramatically. But I was very sad. And I, to this day, am a great fan of Buddy Holly. I think he was as good as a rock singer as there ever has been. And it was a great loss, a very tragic loss.
I will let Hannah Cox ask her first question.
Okay. I have so many competing ideas I want to ask, but I'm going to start with this one. Where were you when Reagan said, tear down that wall?
I'm pretty sure I was in Malibu, and I'm pretty sure that was when we were renting a house in the Malibu Beach Colony, and I have the feeling that I saw it on the news and was very, very, very impressed. And I remember I loved Reagan because all my commie friends in Hollywood hated him so much. And I was at an election night party given by some very, very close commie friends, and they were just in total shock and horror that Reagan won. And Alex and I went home feeling, Alex is my wife of many, many, many decades. And we went home feeling very excited. And a friend of ours named John Mankiewicz, who's a real character, he's from that very famous Hollywood Mankiewicz family, called, and he left a message. At that time, people had answering services, not answering machines. He left a message saying that he was so-and-so with the Reagan campaign, and they wanted me to get to Washington as soon as possible to help with President Reagan's inaugural address. And we were so excited, and it turned out he was playing a prank on us just because, I don't know why, because I don't know why, it's just evil. And we were very excited about it for several days until we learned it was a prank. But we were very, very happy about Reagan. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant thing for Reagan to say. And he was a great, great man, a truly, truly great man. I really, really very, very much missed, a very much missed man.
Ben Boychuk.
Did you make it to either Altamont or Woodstock?
No, and if you gave me literally $100,000, I wouldn't go to either one of them. $1 million, but $100,000 would not do it. Altamont, the idea of standing outside with a bunch of drug addicts and drug addicts that weren't friends of mine, and also people who were using public toilets and just being messy and disgusting doesn't appeal to me at all. No, thank you. I'll skip that. And no, as a matter of fact, wifey and I were working for the summer in New York during Woodstock, and we could have gone up to Altamont. Woodstock, I beg your pardon. But instead, we went to Europe, and I'm very glad we did. I have no interest in being an outdoor rock festival or indoor rock festivals or any kind of rock festival. But I do love listening to rock music on my headphones, lying in bed with my beautiful wifey holding my hand. I'm very, very happy to do that, and that's more than enough for me.
That's beautiful. Louis Fine.
Your first movie in a theater?
I think my first movie in a theater was Gone with the Wind, which my parents took me to probably in the late 40s. And I think probably what was called the Silver Theater in Silver Spring, Maryland, although it might have been a more elegant theater, it might have been the Warner Theater or the Uptown Theater in Washington, D.C. But
tell us about the Uptown. I'm obsessed with the Uptown. I went there. Tell people about the Uptown.
Well, the Uptown was on Connecticut Avenue, far up on Connecticut Avenue, and it was in what I would call a Tony neighborhood. On the west side of Connecticut Avenue, it was restricted against Jews. On the east side, there were a lot of Jews, and it was a perfectly nice theater. I'm not quite sure why you're upset with the Uptown Theater. May I ask why?
Lewis was kicked out.
Obsessed, not upset.
He's obsessed.
I know why were you upset about it?
No, obsessed.
No, obsessed.
Oh, why were you obsessed? I'm sorry.
What are you, Biden? It's a beautiful theater, and it closed. And the architect also did the Flower Theater in Silver Spring.
Oh my God, Louis, how do you know this? I was at the Flower Theater 1,000,000 times. I can't even tell you how many times I was there, and I'm just fascinated to know how you, living out here in Beverly Hills, knew about those theaters. How could you have?
Louis doesn't sleep.
You think I wing this?
How on earth, seriously, how on earth did you know about that?
I had been to the Uptown. The Uptown, I think, is a beautiful theater.
Why were you there?
I was in Washington, D.C. for a summer. It was my second summer in Washington, D.C.
What were you doing there?
I don't remember, but I was there for a summer, and I went to see a movie at the Uptown. So,
beautiful theater.
Yes, and in preparation for this show, I researched the architect who also did the Flower Theater.
Yeah, and I think also did the Langley Theater, which was in
Correct. In Prince George's County.
Yes, and my God, you are. Wow, I have to say, I am very impressed. The Langley Theater and that whole area is now one vast slum, and it's really sad. I mean,
have you ever seen that Seinfeld, everybody, when like George walked into the office and had a good joke, and then he just realized he could do no better and he left?
I'm sorry, say that again?
It was an episode on Seinfeld where George walked into the room and he made everybody laugh. And he realized he could do no better and he walked out of the room. Lewis, we will see you later.
Yeah, that is
Pretty
damn
much.
Lewis. I am very, very impressed.
And on that note, Remzo Martinez.
Wow, I am really impressed, Lewis.
Well, I want to see if there's a link between Lewis and the Kennedy assassination. I'd like to know if he's ever stepped foot in the state of Texas, but I'll ask Ben. Ben, I just finished watching a documentary on the LA riots. Where were you during the LA riots?
Well, there have been many riots in LA, but if you're referring to the first set of riots, I was working at the law firm of Arnold, Fortas, and Porter, which was a firm founded by Thurman Arnold, who was a big friend of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Abe Fortas, who was a big friend of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Harry Truman, and Lyndon Johnson, and who was named to the Supreme Court, but very soon thereafter quit amid certain scandals about certain payments. And somebody named Porter, whom I don't remember what he was famous for, but I was working as a summer clerk there, not doing legal research because I had not started law school yet. I was helping build clients, and I remember just hearing about it on the radio, and it sounded awful, and I was very scared that such a thing would happen in Washington, which had a large African-American population, and the thought it was very frightening, and yeah, scary.
Okay, we have some great questions from the crowd. So on YouTube, they want to know, where were you the night the Beatles performed on the Ed Sullivan Show, or if that had any significance to you?
It had a lot of significance. I loved the Beatles. I thought they were absolutely great, and I'm going to have to respectfully ask. I think that would have been around 1963, and I was almost certainly a student at Columbia in New York, Columbia College, and part of Columbia University, and I'm pretty sure I watched it on the television set in the living room of our fraternity. I'm pretty sure that's where I watched it, but I could be wrong. I could be mistaken, but I did love the Beatles, and I still love the Beatles. And I think they're great. And but to go back a step, I don't think they're as good as Buddy Holly and his Chirping Crickets.
And somebody's phone just beeped, but it's all good.
That's me.
Ben, where were you the day Ferris Bueller came out?
That's
coming from you.
My wifey and I watched it at a theater, a really beautiful theater. Lewis undoubtedly has been to it many times, in Westwood. And I watched it. It got very enthusiastic response from the audience. And then wifey and I went down the block to get some Chinese food, and a whole bunch of people, we were sitting at a table in the window, and a whole bunch of people had just been at the theater, walked by and went going like this and like this, and we're saying Bueller, Bueller. And I thought, something is going on here that may have some effect on my life. And I was happy about it. I was very, very happy about it. I don't think the theater is there anymore, although I'm not sure of that, but Lewis would know. And the Chinese restaurant is definitely not there.
Okay, so Ben, here's another question from the audience.
Yes.
Where were you during the first moon landing?
Oh, I remember that very well. I was visiting my wifey was a student at Vassar College, and she was visiting one of her suite mates, and we went. Her suite mate lived in a suburb of New York, and we were visiting her suite mate's family's home, and it was on the TV in her suite mate's living room. Her father was sitting there watching it, and we sat down and watched it with him. And I remember thinking, this is really pretty darned amazing. It's a real triumph of American know-how and technology, because I remember very well when Sputnik went up, and we just thought we were hopelessly behind in terms of the space race, and we caught up and overtook them very, very quickly.
Okay, I'll let Hannah go next.
Okay, my next one's a little bit more open-ended because I think it's a little bit different for every person. But where were you when you recognized that COVID was going to change the world? And for me, like, that was the day I was in New York City, and there had been some things happening. There were cases happening, but I walked into Union Square one morning to do yoga on a Saturday morning, and it was a ghost town. And that night, New York ended up putting in their shutdown restrictions, and everything was just radically different from that point on. So I'm curious what that moment was for you.
I was in as you may or may not know, I own many houses. I can't afford any of them. I would soon be living in a homeless encampment. But I was at our house in Beverly Hills, and one of my footmen and I were going to go out to our house in Malibu, and the shutdown had just been put into effect by Commissar Newsom, I believe. And we were going out there. Usually the traffic is very, very heavy, and there was no traffic at all. And I thought, woo, something's going on here. This is absolutely effing great because there's no traffic. And from now on, a trip that used to take an hour is going to take a half hour. And we can spend a lot more time at our house in Malibu, and it'll be absolutely great. And the grocery stores in Malibu, there are only 2 near our house, were completely deserted. And I thought, this is great. There's not going to be any line. There won't be any lines at the checkout counters. It's absolutely great. The view of the ocean is just the same. It's fabulous. Of course, I didn't realize all these nice, innocent people were going to die. So I was completely ignorant about the true nature of it. But I did realize that in terms of traffic, it was going to be great.
I actually remember a little differently, Hannah. Ben and I were supposed to do yoga that morning too, and it got really delayed. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According.
Somebody's calling me, and I think it's somebody's watching the show and is making fun of me.
After dark. Well, I made fun of myself. And we will get to your question after the break. It's hard sometimes to see the questions through YouTube since I'm scrolling through. But we will get to your question after the break. And like I said, you just tuned in. You are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Ben Boychuk, tell people where they can find us.
Well, if you're listening or you're watching this rather for the first time, thank you. Please hit the subscription bell on the YouTube page. We love having you. Like us on Facebook if you wouldn't mind. And follow us, of course, on Parler at Ben Stein, and be on the lookout because the podcast empire is expanding. The Ben Stein podcast empire is expanding. We're going to be on we're any day now, if not already. We're going to be on iTunes, Stitcher.
Any day now, I shall be released.
No, we actually are up on iTunes.
Oh, yes. Well, then subscribe to us on all of those places. We're all very fine.
I want to know why Lewis is giving us that. Not only wearing these weird glasses and this wig.
I brought that up, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's just there."
What's his look on his face for? I mean, it looks like he's been dropping acid for several days in a row. What's all that about?
I read the Stoics.
Okay. Okay, it's my fault. My fault.
Back to Ben Boychuk. How do people find us?
Well, again, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein. Wait, I should be doing it. I should be punctuating with this. And of course, follow us on Parler at Ben Stein.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. And somebody has a question. You heard their go-to book is The Eyes of Faith. Will you do another one like this? And was there ever a time when your faith was shaken? I mean,
my faith is shaken all the time because a lot of bad things have happened, but I try to maintain the eyes of faith. And I would like to write another version of the eyes of faith. Most of those, not most, but a very large number of those quotes are from an AA meeting, an 11-step AA meeting that I used to go to every Monday through Saturday in Malibu at an area called Malibu called Point Doom. And that meeting broke up because one of the members was a big movie star, and the tabloids started taking pictures of people going in there. But anyway, I just discovered a book of notes that I took from that meeting that I have not published yet, and I may try to do that. And God bless you for saying that's an important book in your life. You're very, very kind, and I'm very, very touched. And I will tell you, it's out of print, so I don't make any money, but you can find it on Amazon. The Eyes of Faith, and the companion book is called The Gift of Peace. And they're both sayings that I believe have brought many people serenity and peace. And I will tell you, and I know this is not exactly a humorous note, but reading them have kept me from killing myself many a time.
And on that note, Ben Boychuk, you're up.
Where do I go from here? Well, since, as long
Where
as
do I go? Follow the rainbow. Where do I go? Follow my something or other. What is it, Lewis? Where do they lead me? And do I ever discover why I live and die?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with Lewis Carroll.
Yes, you. Oh, cut it out.
Okay, Ben Boychuk, go for it.
Okay, this is what. See, I try to deal with Lewis as a reasonable human being. What good does it do me?
reasonable is that the operative there is reasonable, and that's just out of the question with him.
Yeah.
So you've told a variation on this.
Oh,
You basically told this story before, but I think we have a bunch of new people in the audience, and so I think it would be really cool if you could tell people, where exactly were you when you found out that Richard Nixon was resigning the presidency?
I think you should know something. I love Nixon. I don't just like Nixon. A lot of people like Nixon. A lot of people really are fond of him. Some hate him. I love him with all my heart. I think he is the greatest president there has ever been, and the single greatest friend of the Jewish people there has ever been in the history of the world. I loved him. I was working at the White House as a speechwriter for Mr. Nixon, and there had been a lot of talk that he was going to resign. My incredibly smart colleague in the speechwriting section, John R. Coyne Jr., had told me a few weeks before that his bet was that Nixon would resign sometime near the beginning of August. Nixon kept insisting he was not going to resign. About 36 hours before he resigned or something like that, I was walking through the White House on my way to go see a very, very lovely woman named Patty Matheson who worked for Mrs. Nixon. And I saw a moving truck there with people loading up Mrs. Nixon's clothes. And I thought, wow, this move is imminent, that people don't pack up their clothes unless they're planning to move very, very soon. So I would say I was on the first floor of the White House the day before he resigned. And I think I figured it out before just about anyone else. And I was terribly upset. You can't quite imagine how much I loved and still do love Nixon.
Did that answer your question, Ben Boychuk?
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. When I say I loved him, I mean, he was more meaningful to me than any other human being in my life, except for my mother, my father, and my wife.
Okay, the next question, before I get to Lewis, is from Rock Breath. Where were you when you were told, that's actually not from Rock Breath, but I'll ask the question anyways, about when you found out about Win Ben Stein's money going to Series?
Oh, that was exciting. A very close friend of mine named Al Burton, an incredibly wonderful man, one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life, a really, really, really close friend. And he and I and my wifey were having lunch one day at a wonderful restaurant here called Morton's, not Morton's Steakhouse, but Morton's on Melrose, which is where the movie and television people went, and a wonderful, wonderful restaurant, and owned by Peter Morton. And Al Burton said he had an idea for a TV show called Win Ben Stein's Money, where it would be different from other TV shows in that I would ask questions in the first round, but then I would have to answer them in rounds 2 and 3. And the money, if I didn't win, the money that the other guy won, the contestant, would be deducted from my salary. And I remember saying, I don't really care about the details. I know what Hollywood is like. I know you'll never sell it in a million years. You'll never sell it in a billion years. So just go out and do it. And let's not talk about wasted time anymore. I would say fewer than 24 hours later, I got a call from him saying he had sold it as a pilot. And then we rehearsed it as a pilot for a couple of months, really for a long time. And that was when we recruited Jimmy Kimmel, whose birthday it is today, by the way, to be the co-host. And he's a great, great genius. I mean, I don't care for his political views. I'm sure he hates mine. But then we did a pilot, and we had 2 offers to put it on as a series, and we were very excited. And let's see, I don't remember where I was, but I'm pretty sure I was in my car, got a call on my car phone, and I was very, very, very excited. But I then learned that the deal had been so structured that I could have wound up owing them money at the end of the first season. And I said, well, in that case, I'm not going to do it. And so they agreed to revision the deal so that I would make a modest amount of money, no matter how badly I did on the show. And I wound up doing quite well on the show. So I made a fair amount of money, not compared with what really high paid people make, but by my standards, it was a lot.
Louis Fine, batter up.
Your last meal at Duke Zebert's.
Oh my God, that's funny. Now,
No. First of all,
I am really impressed. Sorry.
Nobody knows what Duke Zebert's.
Great. Let's split an onion roll together.
Highly rated Washington restaurant owned by a guy who, I forget his real first name, but his nickname was Duke Zebert. Interestingly enough, his daughter was in my junior high school class at Montgomery Hills Junior High School. She's a very pretty girl. I have no idea what she's doing now. I hope she's alive and well. She's a very pretty, very sweet girl. And he lived quite near us in Silver Spring. And it was a restaurant that imagined the difference in life. The very highest end of Washington lawyers, lobbyists, and so forth went there for lunch. And a very, very good lunch was 75 cents. And you could get a very delicious chopped steak and French fries and a Coke for probably 75 cents. And then tip would be another 20 cents, maybe 15 cents. And but my last meal there was probably a very long, very, very long time ago, probably around 1960, very, very long time ago. But it was a great restaurant. Okay. I'm really floored at how much you know.
Remzo Martinez.
Impressive human being. Yes.
Okay, Ben. I know a few weeks ago you mentioned that you knew O.J. Simpson. I'm curious.
Yes.
Where were you during the white Bronco chase?
I was just watching on TV like everybody else. I'm pretty sure I was at our house in Beverly Hills watching it on TV like everybody else and thinking to myself, this guy is so guilty. It's a joke. It's an insane joke. He couldn't be more guilty. And he wouldn't run like this if he weren't guilty. And but I do remember thinking he's a big time celebrity. I'm sure he will somehow not get any kind of severe punishment for it. But I was just watching on TV at our house in Beverly Hills, and I think I did say I used to see him all the time at Mr. Chow, which is only a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, and he was always extremely friendly and nice. But then again, I was not dating his former wife, so I don't think I had anything. There was nothing he had to fear from me.
Okay, so I have from Rock Breath. He's asking one of our biggest fans. Where was Ben on November 25th, 1959?
Well, let me see. That would have been my 15th birthday. Gosh, okay. That's a very good question. I'm not sure where I was. I imagine I was a big party giver because my parents had a very for the times and the neighborhood an unusually big house, and we had a big party room downstairs, party hardy, and I probably was having a party. I would be guessing that's what it was.
There you are, Rock Breath. Okay, Hannah Cox, back to you.
Okay, where were you when it was decided between Bush and Gore?
That is a very good question. I'm almost certain I was on an airplane flying LA and New York, because I used to make that trip a great deal, because before the COVID hit, I used to give a great many speeches to business and university and other groups. And I was on that flight from LA to New York really often. And I think I was on that flight and I didn't get the news till I got off the plane. And I was very, very happy and excited to get it. I was really happy and excited to get it. I will be very happy and wonderfully excited when and if and when I learn that Minnesota and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania have been declared for Mr. Trump, and all the talking heads on TV are going crazy. But we're not supposed to talk about that. So
oh, you and I were together that night.
No. I beg your pardon, sir. I think Madame is asking. Oh no, about Bush and Gore.
No,
We were together.
no, we were together the night of 4 years ago.
Oh no, but I think no, but I'm saying when it's decided this time around that there was theft in some of the battleground states and that Trump in fact won, I'm hoping that we will be together again.
But that does bring up a good question. Where were you when Trump won the first time around? And did you foresee it?
Hannah,
I
no,
did
we
not
didn't.
foresee it at all.
Can I
That
tell you the
afternoon,
story?
I had dinner at the Morton Steakhouse in Beverly Hills, and I remember I ran into Sherry Lansing, who had been head of Paramount, and with whom my wife had worked. My wife had been an executive at Paramount, and she asked me. She knew I had some slight acquaintance with politics. She asked me how I thought the election was going to go, and I said, "Oh, Mrs. Clinton is going to kill him. It's just going to be bloody murder." And I remember when the results started coming in, I just couldn't believe my eyes. And I was just so happy. I was just jumping up and down.
And what
you
happened?
might well have been with me,
just so
Judy.
you know,
You might
Hannah,
well have been with me.
Hannah,
What?
it happened like this. He offered me. He said, if Trump wins, he'll give me $1,000.
Yes, and I'm sure I did.
And he did. But he also, that night we celebrated at FBN. He was.
Oh
on
yeah, at Fox. That's right.
Fox,
That's right.
at
I used to
Fox.
be on Fox all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but they stopped having me on for about a year and a half ago. I do not know why. I used to be on a really, really lot. I don't know why they stopped having me on. I just don't know why.
I can promise you, nobody at Parlor will be disappointed with that. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We were having a little bit of fun tonight. We always have fun tonight. That came out wrong. But Ben Boychuk, why don't you tell people where they could find us?
You can find us a number of different ways. Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein.
I just can't stop laughing at Lewis's outfit and the look on his face. I remember, you know what I remember, Lewis, when I was at Yale Law School, there are one or two kids who, despite getting very good scores on the law boards, used to sniff glue. And this is what they looked like when they'd been sniffing glue.
I'm channeling my inner Lou Reed.
Lou Reed, you mean the singer? Lou Reed?
Yeah, and a
Or as
poet.
somebody brought up Corey Hart because you're wearing your sunglasses tonight. But Ben
I'm actually
Boychuk-
doing this from the Chelsea Hotel.
Ben Boychuk. Ben Boychuk. As I told you, Hannah, we have no. There
are no boundaries here. There are no boundaries here.
Ben Boychuk,
like
please continue, Hef.
So subscribe on YouTube. Hit that bell, please. Subscribe. Tell your friends, and most importantly, if you haven't done so already, follow us on Parlor at Ben Stein.
Okay, and then I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. Brady Allison has a very good question. It's a two-parter because it has to do with two space shuttles. Where were you for the Challenger and where were you for the Columbia?
The Challenger was a very sad one, if I remember correctly. And I had been up almost all night blowing cocaine the night before. And I was very, very tired. And my wife said, "Wake up, something big is happening on TV. You better watch this." And so I went in, I dragged myself out of bed and went and watched. The poor thing had already exploded, and they were just showing it exploding over and over again. And I was living in our house in the Hollywood Hills then before we'd moved to Beverly Hills. And so that's about that. And I don't remember which one Columbia was.
Well, I'm not sure if the question was referring to the destruction of the Columbia or the first flight of the Columbia. Maybe both. The first flight was what, 1981?
I don't know. I don't remember those at all. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
Well, Brady, there's your answer. Okay, who's next on this? Where were you, Ben Boychuk? Or is it your turn or is it Lewis's turn?
I think it's Lewis's turn.
Lewis, go ahead.
I'm really disgusted that no one's asked this question because it's the most obvious. And he's going to cry, and I'm not making fun of him. I'm being serious. I'm not making fun of him.
Okay, go ahead.
Your first dog.
My first dog was a Dalmatian named Mary. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Named Charlie. And I lived in a house in Silver Spring, Maryland, and she was a very nice dog. He was a very nice dog, but he was very wild. And even my parents kept building a higher and higher fence, and he could jump over and run away. So we gave him to a family who lived in suburban Virginia, who had a farm, and that presumably he could run all around. But I didn't really form that much of an affectionate bond with Charlie. But my first dog that I was madly in love with was a Weimaraner puppy named Mary Margaret of Santa Cruz, whom we bought, my girlfriend Pat, and she was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful girl, whom I tortured horribly. And she and I got a Weimaraner when we were living at Santa Cruz, when I was teaching at UC Santa Cruz. And she was the best dog God ever made. I mean, really, she was such a good dog. She was a Weimaraner. She was so brave, so loyal, such a wonderful, wonderful girl, just a magnificent, magnificent, magnificent girl. A good dog is just beyond price.
I want to tell a little funny story. This actually happened that you bring up dogs. Years ago, Ben adopted a dog, and he said, Judah, I think you should have it. And it was a pointer that was mentally retarded, and we named the dog Nixon. And Nixon
wasn't mentally retarded. It was just high strung.
It was very high strung, and Nixon used to run away from me a lot in West Hollywood and in this place called Runyon Canyon. And I used to run around Runyon Canyon screaming, Nixon, Nixon. And but it was quite the surprise. And on that note, Remzo, you're up. This is like 15 years ago.
I don't know what to say. Oh, man.
That was a good girl. But Weimaraners are good girls, and German short-haired pointers are really good, too.
Okay, Remzo, you're up.
Where were you when The Mask came out in theaters?
Oh, I don't remember. I remember I saw a preview of it at, I forget what studio we made it at, but whatever studio we made it at, and I thought, boy, this is a great movie. This movie is going to make this guy famous. He was already famous from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, I think it was called. And I thought this is going to make him even more famous. He was a total whack job to work with, but he was really, really, really talented. It was a great, great, great movie. I don't remember where I was, but I remember I just thought it was a fabulous movie. And I was very impressed. Whereas when I saw the preview of Ferris Bueller, I thought it's an interesting movie and a very, very interesting concept, but it'll never make any money and nobody will ever remember it. So shows my talents at that.
There you are. Hannah, you're up next.
All right. Where were you when the moonwalk debuted?
The what?
The moonwalk.
You mean the moonwalk dance?
Yeah. The big moonwalk.
God, I have no effing clue. I don't know. I mean, I vaguely remember what it looks like, but I'm an old guy. I was probably, I don't know what I was doing. I was probably sitting in my room crying, worrying about the stock market, or else exulting at some restaurant, being happy about the stock market. I don't know. I don't remember. I just that did not strike me as a particularly important thing. See, that's important to a young child of your generation, but to an old man like me, we think about money.
Oh, so where were you when Wall Street came out then?
The movie Wall Street?
Yeah.
Is that by Oliver Stone?
Yes, sir.
I'm not a huge fan of Oliver Stone, and I don't think I've ever seen it. So I don't remember where I was, but I do think that his movie about Nixon made some very, very smart points, even though I know he's not a fan of Nixon. I thought he understood Nixon pretty well.
So Eric Amy has a question for you. Where were you when Nixon visited China for the first time? I believe in 1972 or so.
I was working in Washington, D.C. I was a lawyer at the Federal Trade Commission, and I was in the midst of a very, very difficult, bitter litigation over a fruit-flavored drink called High C. And I remember I was just awed that Nixon was going to China. I had gotten a hint about it from my father, who had gotten a hint about it from Nixon. My father was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for Mr. Nixon, and he had some hint about it, and so I wasn't that surprised when it happened. But I remember I was very impressed. Oh, you know what? Back up. I do remember now exactly where I was. I was teaching at American University in Washington, D.C., and I remember now very well that someone, I forget who, had a television in the classroom near the auditorium where I gave my class, and that it was being announced there at the as I was getting ready to teach my class. And I remember I had a hint that it was coming, but I was very impressed that it came, and big stuff. I remember thinking, this guy has got some balls on him to be doing this. I'm really impressed.
Okay, so
I love Nixon. I mean, I can't describe to you how much I love Nixon.
I want to ask you one more, because I think this is very cool, because we've discussed this in a past episode of Who Have You Met? So tell the story quickly, because it's such a cool story of you and your dad at the White House meeting Elvis. And secondly, where were you when Elvis died?
Well, that's the second one is as my wife would say, a heart-rendering story. The White House itself, that is not the executive office building, but the White House itself at that time had two dining facilities: the White House mess and the executive mess. And the White House mess was for people who were like fairly high officials. Like if you were the head of the speechwriting section, you could go there. I was not head of the speechwriting section, so I couldn't go there, but Dave Gergen could go. He was head of the speechwriting section. Then there was the executive mess, which was right next door to it, which was for higher level, cabinet level officials. And my father, God rest his soul, was a cabinet level official, so he could go there. And he and I ate lunch there 2 or 3 times a week. A wonderful, wonderful part of my life. And oh God, was that a wonderful part of my life. And oh God, anyway. So one day I was eating there with my father, and my father said, he leaned forward and said, "Would you recognize Elvis Presley if you saw him right now?" And I said, "Of course I would." And he said, "Well, don't turn around or make any sudden moves, but I think he's sitting right behind you." And I said, "Oh, that's obviously impossible." And he said, "Well, have a look." And I of course, whipped my head around exactly. And there was Elvis Presley having lunch with Bob Haldeman, who was White House Chief of Staff. And I turned, and my father said, don't bother him, or something like that. So I turned around and said to Mr. Presley, "Mr. Presley, everyone in the world is your fan, but I am your greatest fan. God bless you. It's an honor to meet you." And he shook hands with me and he said, "Thank you very much." And that was that. And that was then the day he died, which I believe was, and I'm pretty sure that it was his first week in September of 77, or the last week in August of 77. I was on a trip. I was writing a novel partly set in the Owens Valley, north of Los Angeles, where the water was stolen from to build a large part of Los Angeles. And I was up there with my former girlfriend, Mary Bodwin. And we were just driving around looking at the sites. And on the radio, the news came they interrupted the broadcasting to sing a few verses of Hound Dog. And I said to Mary, "I'll bet Elvis died." Because I had a friend who worked at his studio, at his recording company, who said that Elvis was a big drug user. So I figured his time on earth was measured in months and not any longer. And so I remember I was crying like a baby. And even now I cry often when I hear him. He was wonderful. He was a truly life-changing person in my life.
Ben Boychuk, you're up.
My father would say, my father, who worked for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for 42 years, would say that they stole that water fair and square.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to go back a minute when we were talking about movies and the movies that you've appeared in. I think your very famous scene in Ferris Bueller, you only shot that in one day, right?
One take per scene. There are 2 scenes.
And what was the longest shoot you've ever been on?
That would probably have been The Mask, and that took a couple of days.
Just a couple of days.
That's all.
So
what about the Wonder Years?
But I think you said. I thought you said
movies. Right.
No, for Wonder Years, I was on for 3 years, so that was a lot longer than 2 days. So,
right.
And Win Ben Stein's Money was 6 years. So,
what about Honeymoon in Vegas?
That's you're right. You're totally right. That was several days. You're totally right. And also Miami Rhapsody, there were several days. You're absolutely right. So, God, I'm very lucky. You know, Louis, you're really just trying to disturb me with this look. And so I'm going to have to cover you up. So anyway,
Was your
I don't
cameo?
remember how long Miami Rhapsody took, but it was a lot of fun doing it. Working on the movie is so much fun. It's insane. And I'm very sad that I don't get to do it anymore.
Was your cameo, the shoot for your cameo in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, was that shorter than Ferris? Or
Yes, that was really short. That was really, really short. And John Hughes said to me, it's going to be very short. You can ad-lib a couple of lines wherever you want, but I don't guarantee that I'll use them. And indeed, he didn't use them.
It's got to be in a director's cut somewhere, I would hope.
Somewhere, but I'll tell you, it was fun working with John Hughes.
Yeah.
That was great. I'm very, very lucky I've gotten to do all these things. Incredibly, unbelievably lucky. My wife said to me one day, years ago, I said, I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't left Washington and come to Hollywood. And she said, you would have wound up shooting the top of a building into a crowd with a sniper rifle.
I'm not going to say it. Louis, you're up.
Your last time at the Jockey Club. Take us inside.
Oh, I have a really, 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 really good story about the Jockey Club.
Okay, again, tell us what the Jockey Club is.
Okay, the Jockey Club was a bar at the Fairfax Hotel. I believe it was called the Fairfax Hotel on Massachusetts Avenue, right across from a very nice club called the Cosmos Club, which my parents belonged to. My very, very, very smart, very, 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 very smart friend, Aram Bakshin, used to go there every night for a couple of nightcaps. And when I was in Washington, by that time I lived in LA. When I was in Washington, I would come over and meet him just to reminisce about days at the White House and so forth. And one time I was over there reminiscing with him, and this stunningly beautiful girl came in, just absolutely knock your eyes right out of your head. And I flirted with her and invited her to sit down with us and have a drink. And she and I asked her name, and I said to her, and she was, and I asked her how old she was. She was very young. She was like 19 or 20. She was insanely young. And I said to her, boy, those are the most beautiful diamond earrings I've ever seen. Are those real? And she said, of course they're real. I said, may I ask how come someone your age got to have rings like that, earrings like that? She said, well, my boyfriend gave them to me. And I said, God, you have a rich boyfriend. And she said, yeah, I do. And I said, who is it? And she said, she told me, and it was a very, very famous U.S. senator, very, very famous from the southwestern U.S., and who had a very wealthy wife. And I said to her, wow, those are some rings. I don't think a U.S. senator earns enough money to buy rings like that. And I know how much things like that cost because my wifey, God bless her soul, and she's a wonderful, saintly woman, loves jewelry. So I have an idea how much jewelry costs. And those were expensive effing rings. And as I said, she mentioned the name of this guy, and he was a big time guy and became even more famous. And anyway, I actually went out with her once or twice after that, purely platonically, of course. And I think, based on what she told me, that she was not lying about who the donor was, or who he was, or how he got the money.
I love how we're playing like the game of Clue with who this woman is. And if you just tuned in, I mean, like, he is, you know, is he living? Is he dead? But if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein.
This girl was so good looking. Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
I just had a quick addendum. Air Doctor, tell everybody who lived in the hotel.
A very wealthy woman lived there named Miss Gore, but I don't know whether did Senator Gore live there too?
Correct.
Oh, well, there you are.
And at the Cosmos Club, allegedly, somebody did something on a cocktail napkin that changed economics.
Well, I'm not sure.
I've heard different stories.
You're talking about the Laffer curve, but I'm not sure that was in fact at the Cosmos Club, because I have heard that it was at the Metropolitan Club, which is another club, another very prestigious club in downtown Washington, but it might well have been at the Cosmos Club.
And again, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein.
Well, you know a lot,
We have
Louis.
a special guest tonight with us, Hannah Cox from She's a Newsmax insider. Follow her on Parler at Hannah Cox. We forget to say that, but Ben, quickly tell us where the people can find us, because it's a lot of places now.
Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein. Subscribe to us on YouTube, where we are for now, but who knows, that may change. I don't know. And most importantly, look at you, Remzo, you card ya. Follow us on Parler, because the Parler is the place to be, at Ben Stein. Thank you.
Welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. Tonight we are discussing where Ben Stein was at that moment in history and what his feelings were like. And Remzo, you're up.
Okay, this is personal for me. One of my favorite cartoons as a young boy was The Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh yes, I was in that many times.
The musical episode where you as HP and the other Pixies are about to take over Fairy World. That was one of my favorites. Where were you the first time you watched The Fairly Odd Parents?
I think they probably showed it to me in the theater where we recorded my voice. I don't remember ever seeing it before that anywhere, but then my son knew all about it. And at that time, he was of the age where kids still watch cartoons. So we would watch it at our house in Malibu. And but the first time I ever saw it was, I think, up on the screen where we were doing the sound synchronization. And I loved doing that show. That was a great cartoon.
Okay, Hannah, you're up. You got to.
I have to piggyback, because I am a Wonder Years fanatic. I grew up watching that show.
The greatest show ever.
Greatest show of all time.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Greatest show ever. So I'd love to hear how you got involved with it and where you were when that.
I was just hanging around, probably having lunch at Morton's, and I got a call from my agent asking me if I wanted to do it. And I don't argue. I just say, yeah, I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. And so I went over and did the first episode and loved it. And I just said, I'll just be in as many episodes as you want me to be in. And if you want to pay me, that's good. If you don't want to pay me, you don't have to pay me. I just enjoyed it so much. And I cannot remember how many episodes I was in, but let's just say roughly 10, just very roughly. It could have been 12, it could have been 9. There were so many fun times. And I remember in one episode, the star, Fred Savage, had a crush, or a brief crush, on a new girl in the school whose name escapes me. I bet Lewis is going to know this. And she was a staggeringly beautiful girl. And I just fell madly in love with her. She wasn't really that age. In real life, she was in her mid-20s. And flirted with her, and she wouldn't give me the time of day. And but I recently recently her name popped into my memory, and I looked her up, and she's married to some world famous guy from mixed martial arts or something like that, or a guy who eats alligators or something like that. So I figured she probably wasn't my type anyway.
Can I ask a question for Hannah? What's Narnia like?
Narnia?
Yeah, because you're broadcasting from Narnia.
Is that what it says?
No, it's what it's.
Or that's what it looks like.
It's very.
My winter wonderland.
Yes.
It's quite lovely, actually. I'm in kind of a little soundproof cove in my basement. It's very snug and cozy. Yeah, it's lovely here. No wardrobes though.
Greenville's a great town.
Greenville,
yeah. And by the way, it is really cool as we're going through this, realizing how many different things you've been in. Because it's sort of
I forget for years on end how many houses I own.
But it's not just that. It's think about the movie, right? Obviously, there's Ferris.
I have been in more movies than I can conceive.
No, but then you were in one of the greatest shows of all time, which was The Wonder Years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could honestly say that. But Ben Boychuk, you're up.
He can't think of anything to ask. That's okay.
No, it's tough because what was your, I want to stick on the Hollywood theme. What was your least favorite gig?
In Hollywood?
Yeah.
Probably anything where I had to write a script and then have it revised by some jerk off person just out of college who knew nothing about writing. And I remember one of the last scripts I ever wrote. I wrote the script, and the woman said it was too hard to follow, and it should be clear, concise, 1, 2, 3. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Should it be more like a poem, or should it be more like instructions on how to operate a washing machine? And she said, it should be more like instructions on how to operate a washing machine. That was just as my wife would say, heart-rendering. And that was, I think, the last time I ever tried to write a script for Hollywood. But for a while, I was doing real well at it and making money, and it was great.
What was your least favorite acting gig?
Well, I think it was a commercial. I was a spokesman for Clear Eyes eye drops for about 15 years.
I love the Clear Eyes commercial.
I loved them too. But this one was not one of my favorites. In this one, I was seated on a chair, and they did something that made the chair collapse, and I fell into a bucket of water. And that was to symbolize the cleaning, moisturizing effects of Clear Eyes. But as I said to them, for what you're doing, you could drop me into a barrel of acid for what you're paying me, and it would be fine. But they fired me too, but only after 15 years. And they replaced me with a very, very beautiful woman who had won a Miss America contest.
Vanessa Williams.
Yeah, there you are.
But I thought the Alaska fisherman.
Oh, God. I'd totally forgotten that. I was a spokesman for the Alaska Seafood Fisheries Council, and they put me on a goddamn raft next to a giant glacier out in the middle of the Arctic Ocean or somewhere very cold and awful off the coast of Alaska. And just as they were putting me on it, there was I think it was called a calving. A giant mountain of ice fell off this glacier and made my raft bounce all around. And I just really thought this was it. I was going to die for advertising a bunch of Alaskan salmon. And they took pity on me and took me inside. And they filmed it for the next several days on a sound stage with a device that simulated a raft bouncing up and down. But boy, I hated that. And good for you, Jude. It's amazing how much I've forgotten. It's incredible.
Well, that's why I'm your Boswell.
Did you get free salmon out of the thing? I hope.
I don't think I did, but boy, I would tell you what, they let me leave Alaska, and that was good enough.
Okay, Louis, we're going to keep these short and sweet since we're running out of time. Oh, quickly from where were you politically? Where were you when Agnew resigned?
I'm pretty sure, working for Mr. Nixon, and no. I beg your pardon. I was working as a trial lawyer at the Federal Trade Commission, and I was very sad about it. I had always liked Agnew. I think the first time I ever voted was for Agnew as governor of Maryland, and I liked him a lot, and he was a good friend of my father's, and I liked him, and I was very sorry to see him resign.
Okay, speed round, Louis, you're up.
Your last sandwich at Bowie Mongers.
You know something? I never liked Bowie Mongers. There was a place called Kay's Sandwich Shop. It was 1,000 times better. They had a sandwich made up of corned beef and a fried egg and some Russian dressing or something on pumpernickel. It was the best tasting thing I've ever had in my life.
That's a good
I
sandwich.
don't think I ever had anything at the Bowie Mongers.
You're not missing anything.
Remzo,
yeah, I don't think it was very good.
Where were you when JFK was assassinated?
I was at Columbia College. I was coming home from a class as a sophomore, and I stopped to pick up my mail in the office for my dormitory. And the man there said, John F. Kennedy has been shot. And I said, well, I hope it wasn't serious. He said, I think it's probably very serious. And I was an announcer on the campus radio station. I ran a very short distance to the campus radio studio, and they said his condition was extremely grave. And I figured that was it for him. I was very upset about it. I was not a Democrat and have never voted for a Democrat for any office, but I was very sad about it. And it's still sad. I mean, he stole that election from Nixon, but he did not deserve to be shot for it. His father, maybe, yes, but he didn't deserve it.
I think we could all agree on that with his father. Okay, Hannah, you're up next.
Oh, all right. Where were you on 9/11?
I was at the Essex House Hotel in New York. I was up there for a speech, and by an amazing, astounding coincidence, my room, which was on Central Park South, was on a very high floor and faced south, and I could see the fires on Wall Street and the smoke billowing out. And I remember thinking, oh my God, something very bad has happened. But I did call room service. They brought me out my room service, and I remember I watched TV and ate my breakfast. And then a very close friend of mine was staying at that hotel, and she came over and visited me. And we went for a walk around Manhattan. It was quite deserted, but I remember there were a bunch of sons of bitches, French tourists, and they were laughing their heads off, and where they were sickening. Okay, next.
Wow.
Okay, Ben Boychuk.
Where were you? What were the circumstances under which you received word that your very first book was accepted for publication?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I was working at the Wall Street Journal as a columnist. I was very lucky. I got a column at the Wall Street Journal before I was 30 years old. And I had pitched many, many book ideas. And finally, through the help of my very good agent, David Obst, I pitched a book about a hyperinflationary catastrophe in the United States of America, similar to the hyperinflationary catastrophe in Weimar, Germany. And the co-author was my very famous father, Herbert Stein. And we pitched it to Michael Korda at Simon & Schuster. And he pretty much on the spot bought it. And I was very, very excited. That was at the Simon & Schuster offices at Rockefeller Center.
Okay, Lewis, quick one.
When did you decide to be Judah's foster parent?
Well, I don't know. It just sort of happened. I mean, I don't know. It just sort of happened. But he's we very much welcome him into our family, and are very proud to know him and to be associated with him. And he's a very extraordinarily smart guy and a talented guy in every way that I have ever challenged him.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege. Likewise, many times over. Now you're gonna make me cry. You have to ask a sad question. What is wrong with you, Lewis? Are you on acid?
I want to know why Lewis is dressed like he's on acid.
It's acid.
Please.
It's acid. But I want Remzo in. I want Remzo one more. Hannah, I'll get to you too. We'll go a few minutes extra. Remzo, you look excited, so go for it.
Where were you when you were invited to go speak at Liberty University in 2012?
Oh, I don't remember where I was, but I sure loved Liberty University. I really loved Liberty University. Loved Liberty University. Loved it. Loved Mr. Falwell. Loved his wife. Loved his incredibly sexy wife. And I just...
Others did too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not getting invited back to any alumni functions ever again now.
A wonderful school. And I always loved his father. His father had this great habit when he would be debating with some liberal, and the liberal would be saying some lies, and Jerry Falwell Sr. would say, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. He was wonderful. And that whole family is a great, super family.
Lewis, why?
He doesn't. He can't help himself. Hannah, I saw you had.
No. I didn't have another one. I was just saying, if you watch Lewis very carefully, I've seen him come close to breaking a few times, but he's doing a masterful job. Masterful.
Well, if you had dropped that much acid, you would.
Have you ever seen the show An Idiot Abroad?
I've not.
No, I never.
It's a great show if you haven't seen it. It's a brilliant show. And we are running out of time. Does anybody have any more places where they're curious of where Ben was? Where was Waldo?
Thank you all, it's been a great, great pleasure. Now I have to make dinner for my big wifey.
Ben, if you could let me just close it out for 1 second, that would be great. I want to thank everybody for listening to this edition of The World According.
I'd like to give special kudos or how it's pronounced, to Lewis for maintaining that great drug addict look throughout the show.
Yes, he's maintaining is the right word. I want to, of course, thank our special guest tonight, Hannah Cox.
Hannah, God bless you. Next time I am in Greenville. I will look you up and we'll get together and you can meet my son, a very, very wonderful kid and very, very charming kid. And we can all go out to dinner and have a wonderful time.
Well, I would love nothing more.
And you could find Hannah on Parlor at Hannah Cox. Of course, you could find Remzo on Parlor at Remzo. Ben Boychuk, tell people where they could find you.
On Parlor at bboychuk3. That's BBOYCHUK3. Please also follow American Greatness and check out the site at www.amgreatness.com.
Louis Fine, they could find you at L Fine on Parlor. I can't even.
And Promises in Malibu.
And I just want to thank everybody again for listening tonight. And of course, let's thank America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We give you a big salute. You made our life a lot better for an hour, not having to think about reality. And you got Louis to have hair, and
I can never unsee that now.
And Ben, we will let you go. If everybody else, because we will let you go. Cook
wifey,
for your wife.